Swissing channel. So yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about why is it important to stay organized. I'm a freelance editor, and most of the times I'm working in projects where I'm the middleman, or I'm far down the pipeline, and I work with other shooters. I shoot sometimes myself, but when I'm not there on set, when I don't have the time to be there, or when I'm freelancing for another company, I get handed a drive with tons of footage. Could be a week long shoot, or could be a day or a few hours interview. But it's very important to stay organized, because I have to follow a brief, and most of the time when I'm working for another company, I'm not on set, so I have no clue of what happened, how the day went. So notes are very important when you're working with an editor. Ultimately, it saves you time, and time, it's money. If I get handed over a project which is very messy, and I have no clue what the project is about, and there's no notes on which takes are good, or what interviewer answer the best questions, and it gets very complicated for me as an editor to do my job correctly, because I'll have to go through hours or minutes of footage that not necessarily have any meaning for me. So following a brief, I would say, and even shot notes from the set, it's very helpful when I'm actually gonna dig in and begin working on such project. Personally, I have created this workflow where I'm very organized, and even though I might be on the shoot day, or I have shot the footage myself, you never know if you will have to require to hand your edit, your timeline, or your folder structure to another editor or a graphic artist. And if I'm organized, I'm saving them time, and they will appreciate that. I'm just going to show you a bit of how and why I do my folder structures, and why is it so important to be organized. Currently I'm working in a documentary for a gym, and this series, in this series we follow 3 people. There's a boxer, a bodybuilder, and someone else, and the idea behind it is to show teenagers or people who are young, the importance of living a healthy life. This was a week-long shoot, so it's a 5-day shoot. There's a photographer on set. We were filming in the Black Magic Ursa, and you know, 5 days of filming back to back. There's things you need to follow, and there's, you know, unloading cards. You know, some days we shot 3 cards, some days we shot 2 cards, and then the stills photographer sends over their stills through WeTransfer or Dropbox. So as you can see, it can easily become very messy if you're not on the ball every day when you're on downloading your footage, when you're making your backups. It's very important to follow a structure that you can understand, but ultimately anybody else can understand if the time comes that you have to hand the project over for someone to do extra work, like, you know, graphics or stuff like that. Even the colorist, you know, it's important that all your assets are in folders and where they should be, and clearly named. So I'll just jump in Premiere, and so this is the project we're working on. As you can see, there's the folders that, you know, Premiere generates. I'll move this a little bit. You know, the previews and all that, audio and video and whatever. But all my footage, which is everything, it's organized in a folder called footage. So there's drone footage, there's gym, B-roll, there's assets that I thought I might need to use, but they're not as important as my main body of interviews and B-rolls with the athletes. And so inside each person's folder, I have stills. I have a folder for stills. There's a Lightroom catalog, and there's raw images in those folders. That's behind the scenes photography. And I have a Lightroom catalog. Now lately I'm creating a catalog within my project so I can easily hand over everything. I used to have a big catalog where I have all my behind the scenes photography and photos are going for the web or Instagram or whatever, but I have to go back to that catalog. So sometimes I have 4 hard drives connected, 5 hard drives connected, and I'm working out of, you know, different types of footage. So for me to keep it clean and organized, I decided that I was gonna, every project, if we have photographer on site, or if I'm doing photography, I'll make sure that that Lightroom catalog stays within that hard drive. So anytime I disconnect that drive and I go to edit in another computer, which is not my one, or I hand over this to another editor, he will just have to hook up, boom, and that's all your files are in one place. Obviously you will back up and maybe make a copy of that hard drive, and but this is kind of the workflow that I found that works best for me at the moment. So I'll go back to this. So that's a few screen grabs that I got out of the actual timeline when after it been graded. So I'll show you. This is like a very cool tones. We're looking at a kind of filmic look. So we're playing with LUTs and the Ursa Mini has a spectacular like grain film. So that's those 3 stills, or those 4 stills, were taken out of the timeline. I send that to in this particular case, to the boxer, which is a look killer. They are to be shared in social media and stuff like that. So we generate a hype with while the project is still in pre-production, or in post-production, sorry. All my footage is in this drive. In this case, we only shot in one card. We're shooting in Ultra HD and ProRes 422, sorry, so 10 bits. You know, this is an easy example because there's not much footage. 3 of those clips are the interview. We can't see them here, we'll see them inside Premiere. And then the same goes with the second person. So we selected one still for social media sharing to generate hype. In this case, there's 2 cards were shot in the day, so one contains some footage and the other one contains the rest of the footage. So after you created this folder structure, so footage, all whatever assets you have via, you know, first camera, A camera, B camera, or drone footage, still photography, all that, if you organize that neatly, once you go to Premiere, it's very easy to find the files you're going to be working with. And ultimately, I always create a music bed folder, which is where I'll test tracks and download them, so I know that all my files are in that same hard drive. If I need to go and work on a laptop, I can just hook up that hard drive and boom, that's my project file there. In this particular project, I didn't work with graphics, so there's not a graphic folder, but generally you would have a graphic folder, a folder for your bio, voiceovers, and you know, another file, After Effects file, and you know, Audition and all that. This project is in the overall scheme, it's very simple, straightforward. Interviews followed with B-roll of the athlete, and we make an edit with all those assets. So let's launch that timeline. So as you can see, this is like 5 days of video shoot. So I generated, to make it easy, this becomes very messy once you go down and begin making versions of the main interviews and selecting B-rolls. But I'll walk you through how I go about the layout I have. It's very good for when you wanna when you're playing with your creative juices. So I'll basically go first of all go through all my footage, and I am gonna go and select best bits that I think I might need or I might want to use when I'm working in the edit. And I create, I'll just close this and I'll show you how I did this. Once I have all my media in Premiere and in a folder structure that I can understand and it's organized, I'll go first to the B-roll. So I create a few timelines. The resolution depends on what you're working on, but I'll show you here. Here, this timeline is called selects, And this timeline consists in me going through all the B-roll, all the supported material, and selecting segments that I think I might use in my final edit. And this goes over and over and over and over and over. This saves so much time, because once I go through all the footage and start selecting and dumping into a timeline, I can scrub through it and see what bits work best. There's a few that are here highlighted up, which is files I thought I definitely will use. So when I want to go back to them, because it can get very messy very fast, when I go back to them, I know that at least this files that are, you know, higher in the timeline are files that I should go back and see, because I found when I was doing my first pass that they might be handy, they might be good, they're good takes, or, you know, in this case his hand is touching a wall, and that symbolizes for me that he was, you know, touching ground with whatever was happening in the interview. So I was in the interview, I was operating the camera actually and asking the questions, so I already have in my head how I see the final edit, and that's very important, because I know the things he said, and I know what things were, you know, in my opinion, good, and what things were not good. That's the phone there ringing. I don't know who it is. Anyways, so once you selected all your supporting footage or B-roll, with that timeline there, I can just drag and drop it here. So now I have two timelines, and those two timelines are going to be very handy. So when I'm working in my timeline, which is going to be the edit I'm going to show to the client, I'll go and first do only dialogue and select the bits of dialogue that I think might be good, that I think he came across confident, that I think he said something that is important, and I'll just basically do all my interviews without seeing B-roll, just my main interview. In this case, I didn't want to show him actually being interviewed, and that was a decision that I made. Again, someone offered me in adverts. So yeah, in this case, I didn't want to show him being interviewed, and I decided to just use the B-roll, and this would give the viewer a break from just a talking head, and it will generate a bit of variety, and the viewer will be more inspired to watch this particular person who is, he's a bodybuilder. His name is Mokhtar. I think he's in Instagram as Mokhtar Fitness, but anyways, I'll put a link to his Instagram. So once I selected all my bits from the interview, then I can easily, by having the two timelines there, I can easily drag and drop files and begin covering my interview with shots of him interacting with people, or in the gym, or whatever your footage is. This workflow makes me work faster and gives me easy access to all the footage that I've already selected, and this ultimately saves a lot of time. Obviously, sometimes you want to, there might be some file that got sent afterwards or whatever, like the B-roll of the gym in this case, and I'll put that in a separate folder, which I'll later go on if I need that footage. In this case, I only ended up using an extra shot, which was not shot in the day, was shot previously, but then the rest is just the footage we captured during this last week of filming. So once you have all that selected, once you drag and drop all your footage on top of your main interview, you go and select your music, which in this case is like a very inspirational music. So this way of working helps me be organized, helps me save time, and ultimately if I had to hand over this project to a separate editor or a motion graphic artist or a colorist, they will appreciate that, because this project is very easy to navigate through, and you can find all your assets and all the things that you need to find in this folder structure. So one folder for sequences, which are where all my sequences, you know, main interview. This file is just the interview. This sequence is just the interview with no cuts, nothing else. And I'll do the same thing when I'm working with the interview. I'll select this and I'll put my select here and interview, so I can drag and drop bits and pieces from that interview into this, which will be my final timeline. And this is version 1, so if there are changes that might be very drastic, I'll keep a copy so I can always go back to version 1 if needs be. So music bed, that's my folder where I keep all my tracks and the music I'm going to use. Graphics, in this case there's no After Effects or no complicated graphics. It's just the logo of the client, and there's two variations, one that goes in a black background and one that goes in a white background. And then the adjustment layer is the same size as my main sequence. And then you can see adjustment layer. In the adjustment layer, I generally, you know, put my LUT and then grade underneath the LUT. I found that gives me a way better results, and it doesn't degrade my footage. And I can just turn it off for the whole of the sequence of the whole project with one click. So I'll show you where my adjustment layer is. Here, this is my adjustment layer. So if I wanted to just not show that and show the log footage, with one click I can go back to the whole project without an adjustment layer or without color grade. So yeah, just to finish up here, I just wanted to show you guys how and why I'm very meticulous with how I organize my footage. And I think if you follow some of these steps, you might come up with a system that works for you, as long as you can pass that information to someone else that's going to be working parallel to you or after you or before you. And in the project, if everybody stays organized, then it's very easy and it's time saving. So, you know, people are going to be happy that you are organized and they want to work with you again. And if it is like projects which are serial projects or long form documentaries or features or short films, even short films can be very messy because there's too many people working at different times, and then there's someone on set making sure that the takes are correct, there's someone else on set copying dailies and rushes. So if everybody stays organized, it's very easy once you go to post-production to save time. And then your editor will be happy because the folder structure is easy to understand. If there's notes, edit notes from the sound guy, and all those bits and pieces help out once you go to post-production, because in post-production there's so many things that need to be looked after, and if you jump in a production which is very organized and have notes, it's very easy to flip that project and make it into something that, you know, your viewers want to watch, and that can happen very fast if you are organized since the beginning, since you're shooting and you're on set. If you are organized in the beginning and the end, you'll have something that will be easy to manage, and you can bring different teams and editors and freelancers to work on the project, and everybody will be able to understand what's exactly happening. So I think that's it for me. I just wanted to make a quick video and wanted to show you guys how I work and how and why is it important to stay organized. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see some more tutorials in the future, subscribe to the channel. Also, I would like to know if you guys found this useful, and if you guys do something differently and why. So just leave a comment down below, and thanks for watching. See you next time.